what are we doing here today? This is Tuesday, July 13th, 2021. It is 6 o'clock. This is Planning Commission meeting for the city of Ocean Springs. Before we call the meeting to order, I will ask anybody that can stand to please rise, and I will lead us in a quick prayer, and Matthew will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. God, we thank you so much for this day. We thank you so much for this beautiful weather we got to enjoy today. Please help us to make the best decisions up here that we can. Guide us, guide our hearts, guide our minds, and help us to do things that benefit the city of Ocean Springs and her residents. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, let's call this meeting to order. So, first up, there is all commissioners present with the exception of Tina. I've got a really high microphone. Do you mind?
Actually, it's not that loud.
Okay. You get some feedback on it. All commissioners minus Tina are present. I will ask anybody that has newfangled cellular technology to please put that thing on quiet so as to not disturb your neighbors. Today we have several items on the agenda. Several of them are public hearings. We will call for some comments on the first two items, A and B, under new business as well. I say we just get into it, and I'll try to make it make sense as we go. That sounds like a good plan. Item number 2, approval of minutes from the June 10th, 2021, or actually the June 8th, 2021 meeting. Does everybody have a chance to review the minutes, and do I have a motion on those minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion to approve as presented, seconded by Joe. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, we got to do the hard stuff, guys. It's all downhill from here. All right, item 3 under old business. 3A is going to be 108 Shearwater Drive, residential short-term rental permit update. Carol?
Yes. As a reminder, this is under old business. The public hearing was held at the last Planning Commission meeting, and it was tabled to review the documents provided as far as the agreement between the applicant and the neighbors. You have an update in your packet that we did review that, and with the additional materials provided by Mr. Shar, it appears that the driveway that leads to the short-term rental is solely within Mr. Shar's property, which is what we were requiring. So with that, we would confirm that it's compliant in all other points as discussed at the last meeting, and that satisfies the concern. We are also asking, though, that additional compliant signage be placed both at the street and along the driveway, anywhere that a shared driveway crosses, to make sure that it's very clear which direction the renter should take. Also, as was pointed out, the parking plan that was submitted, and I hadn't had a chance to talk about this, does seem to indicate to use the shared drive, but we just need that modified to just show that they stay on. I'll go over that with you. In the drawing, it appeared to deviate, so we'll just go over that. It's just a minor change. The places are fine, it's just how you get there. So with that being said, you also have an additional letter that was received and is in front of you. Did you? Okay. From a Sue White, and it's basically stating that they did meet, that they came to a verbal agreement, but however they are drafting it, and wanted to hold the approval until that agreement was in writing and approved. The option before you, however, since you are a recommending body and not an approval body, is that you can recommend approval contingent upon receipt of said agreement so that we can confirm it is in place, and we just won't take it to the board until then. It doesn't go to the board until August 3rd anyway. So, but if we don't have it at that time, we'll hold it over to the next meeting until we can confirm. So the recommendation, the revised recommendation at this point is to approve as presented, with the basically the condition or confirming that the driveway stays solely within Mr. Shar's property, and contingent upon receipt of the agreement as described.
Okay. Seeing as how this had a public hearing already, I don't see any additional public input. It was tabled for us being the city, not us being the planning commission, to have more time to look into the parking and driveway access. So there's been some updated information in your packets that you probably reviewed. I'm assuming everybody had a chance to review this before the, whatever. Do I have any comments or questions for Carolyn, just statements from the commissioners, or if you have anybody in the audience you need to ask questions of, please do so as well. Anybody?
Well, Mr. Shar is in agreement with the letter we received.
I have not seen that letter, but I would like to speak to that if I could.
But, I mean, the gist of it, Donald, is that y'all are working on some legal documents. They've asked that it be tabled until that is finalized. As Carolyn pointed out, we could do that. We could also send it to the Board of Aldermen, like Carolyn said, with a, not the option.
It's the contingent.
Contingent,
I think that's the word, yeah.
Contingent on that being resolved before the Board of Aldermen either considers it or approves it. So that, kind of in a nutshell, Donald. Anybody else, while he's reading that, questions, comments? I did have one quick little, and it's probably more of a housekeeping item that may have changed since, but I'm looking at page 11 of 18 in our packages. And it's what was submitted on the previous application, so it probably hasn't been resolved, but I'm going to address you real quick on this too, Donald. This is what the original application showed. I would want to see, and I'm only one person that can make the motions, but I want to see like an updated parking plan if you're going to give this to the residents to show them, hey, you need to use this driveway, not that. That makes sense.
That's what I was just talking about.
I mean, and that's, the updated version does, I just want to make sure that.
Can I get up and speak now?
We don't need.
Take any action.
Just to show it on
The revised map that I sent in the second submitted provides that information. If you want it in another format, I could do it, but it shows.
No, I just want to make sure that if it is approved, because it appears that this page 11 was part of like the rules or, you know, part of the package that was
Sure,
given to the end user. I just
We'll
want to make sure.
correct that to make it consistent with the last one.
So, were I to make a motion to approve, I would want it to be contingent on the package being good.
Don't ask me a question, I haven't had a chance to.
Go ahead, Adam, that was your question.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if you were agreeing with what you were told, I guess you were negotiating with.
Donald Shore, 108 Shearwater Drive. We have been negotiating with all the property owners, but it is on an issue that, in our opinion, is totally unrelated to this application. The issue at stake before this board at the last meeting was whether or not we had access solely on our property to the short-term rental, and we did. We provided that information to you that shows that. We have been negotiating in good faith on an issue about the common driveway easement, which the only impact of that easement on our property is that they have the right for unrestricted ingress and egress. They have no other rights on our property and on the driveway that we're proposing to use to go to this short-term rental. So we are opposed to any agreement with our neighbors being a contingency of getting approval for this short-term rental. Our neighbors solely have the right for ingress, unrestricted ingress and egress in perpetuity, and this does not interfere with that. They have no other rights to tell anyone, including us, what we can do with our property, as long as it is legal and it does not interfere with their easement for ingress and egress.
Okay. Thank you, Donald. I'm sorry, Donald, Matthew, I think, did you want to?
I'm sorry.
This is actually Attorney, I'm going to ask a question on this. So instead of approving with the contingency of what the neighbors have submitted, what about if we said it's contingent upon having verbiage in yours that says strictly that the egress to your property is strictly contingent upon just using your property, which is proposed for us? So that would kind of take it a step where it would be approving it, but it's strictly, there would be any crossover between the
I guess to describe what he's asking for, we've done it before where you have a condition that needs to be met as part of the permit. So what he's saying is to approve it with the condition that the access remains solely on your property and well signed.
We can't
Yeah.
guarantee what anybody that's driving will do. All we have control over is put the appropriate signage out, and that's what we met with Carolyn on, and we talked about where we could put those, and if there are other ways to improve that, we will do it. But like I said at the last meeting, we get people coming on to our property, put the Shearwater Drive. They just made a mistake, so if you're asking us to guarantee that nobody will ever potentially get on that, we can't.
That's not what we're asking, it's basically just put verbiage in your agreement and everything, so it basically takes all neighbors out of that and everything. But what neighbors have submitted, basically ask you to work on the easement for each property and everything. Tying it all together, I mean, that's something I would like an attorney's point on that and everything moving forward. So, what is your opinion of having that, what the neighbors are asking?
I mean, obviously I defer to y'all, you're much more versed on this than I am. I was under the impression coming in today that the issue that remained with the neighbors and I guess you as a property owner that was being negotiated in good faith, you know, had come to a resolution. So I guess I'm a little confused about why now all of a sudden there's some other ancillary
I think we're
issue.
making this, to answer your question, yes, Matt, I think that'd be a great way to do it, because you're telling the guy, hey, as long as you're on your property, you can do what you want to do, which is a great way to look at life. Kind of catching you up a little bit, if somebody veers off his property or whatever, that becomes a civil matter. We, the planning commission, we, the city, really don't care about that as long as he had a means of getting to his site on his property, and that's what we approve. So I would think that would be a great way to go, Matthew. One day.
And that's what the application is saying.
Right.
Yeah, but.
Did I hear somebody over here? I'm sorry.
I would make the statement that we are more than willing, it's actually in our rules already that we propose that the residents do not access our neighbor's property.
Sure.
If we can improve the wording on that, we'll be glad to do it.
Yes.
But I will also tell you, and we are not proposing to use this for the bed and breakfast. We have the legal right to use that common easement for ourselves, and we will continue to do that. So we don't want anything to create a problem with the right that we already have. But for this permit, this short-term application, we intend to solely direct everybody to turn on the driveway. This is through signage and through information on the driveway that is solely on our property. And it goes straight to that, and the mapping that y'all, I've got a larger copy, but it was provided to everybody, shows that orange driveway is entirely on our property.
Matthew, Alan, did y'all have anything else for Mr. Shaw?
I want to say something.
Yeah, sure.
Leanne Shaw, 108 Shearwater. Just to reiterate, Matthew, too, for you, the application and our desires to solely use our property. And our understanding is other people's right of ingress and egress does not limit our use of our property. So the other point is the common discussion we're having is other property owners are trying to vacate the easement that's there. It's to put less of that burden on us as property owners. So we're for that. We're for that. The problem is it's now being held over us that if we don't sign this agreement that was just agreed to like day before yesterday, that they're going to withhold their approval.
Yeah.
So it's kind of put us in a, it has nothing to do with the fact that we own the property and that's what we want to do.
So, we need to be very careful. We're not here to discuss the civil matter. We're here to discuss the short-term rental application. And we don't want to convolute that application by talking about something that the city has nothing to do with. So let's stay focused on the short-term rental application. We have something in front of us that says, Donald Char says, absolutely, I can get to the rental from a public right-of-way on the property that I own. So I think that's what we need to focus on and worry about.
And also, just for the record and for everyone's information, when we have stated conditional that were maybe unique to the property and there was a condition that was included in the approval, if that is something that they are held to, and if it deviates or they don't hold up to it, then that is, that's something that we can correct through the ordinance, whether it's non-renewal or that's like any other violation, so we can ensure that he stays to that commitment to directing them solely on his property.
Subject to any renewal, it does work.
Yes. So that's,
Anybody else have any thoughts or comments? Matthew, did you want to take a stab at the ordinance or the motion since you had such great ideas? Anybody want to make a motion on this one?
Yeah, I'll make one.
Okay.
I make a motion that the application for short-term rental at 110B Shearwater Drive, with the requirement.
So,
that
at 108.
108, sure.
108,
Donna, it is 108, right? Okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
108 Shearwater Drive, with the requirement to include a 1 square foot sign at the driveway to avoid confusion for gas to be approved.
Okay, now would that be contingent on anything such as ensuring that user access is wholly contained on the Sharp property? That would not be contingent upon that? Okay, does anybody want to second that motion as presented? Anybody want a second? Okay, that motion will die for lack of a second. Does anybody want to take another stab at that motion?
I'll go for it.
Yeah.
All right, motion to approve a short-term rental permit at 108 Shearwater Drive on the condition that access to the short-term rental is wholly located on the Shars property, and a 1-foot sign is placed to ensure that renters are directed to the right driveway.
Subject to annual approval.
Subject to annual
Oh, I'm sorry, I
approval.
didn't mean to touch that.
Subject to
favorite
annual.
part.
Does anybody else have, or does anybody second that motion?
Second.
Similar motion, added the caveat of wholly contained on the Shar property. I think we kind of do by saying it's on there.
you could just say, update the parking plan accordingly.
Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah, yeah, so we really don't approve the rules. Donald, you promised to update your parking plan?
Yes, I'll get that, I'll get that in this week.
Any other discussion on that? Motion by Kevin, I'm sorry, I forgot who seconded it. Me. Second by Marshall. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
And this goes on the August 3rd board agenda.
So, yeah, August 3rd board meeting, that will, for everybody here for this, that will be the final say-so. We are recommending that the board approve it, but they can choose what they do at their discretion. All right, let's move down to new business, shall we? The first item will be, actually, let's take a little break here and have a little moment of silence. So there was a recent ruling that probably made the news and some people may have heard of, and it's caused us to be in a bit of a, I'm gonna go with flux, that's a good word for this, right? Flux with what ordinances we do and don't have. I believe that the overall directive is to take everything kind of on a case-by-case basis. So for tonight, and Wade will kind of help us out on item 5A, but most of the items on here are not actually under, so all the short-term rentals are under their own ordinance, so those won't be affected. We'll review those just the same as always. Can I get conversations to be held outside, please? So the two that may be affected are item A, F. I believe that would be it. So Wade will kind of address those as we come. Our new attorney Taylor, did I get it right? I did it right. Taylor will jump in as and when needed as well. So let's just dive in and see how it lands. So item 5A is going to be 525 Jackson Avenue, which is parcel ID number 601-370-98000. Ray Delaney requesting a lot split. Wade, you want to tell us what's going on here?
Right.
Excuse me, that's item 4A, is it not 5A?
Yes, it absolutely is. Thank you for keeping me honest. Yeah, item 4A.
Okay, thank you. All right, you said this is a lot split, property is zoned CMX 1, which is the neighborhood commercial mixed use district. the property's at the corner of Jackson Avenue and Porter Avenue, and it's within the Porter Avenue Special District for the Unified Development Code. And the request is to split the parcel into 2 lots for future sale and development. First, the corner property is 5,700, almost 5,800 square feet, and is basically undeveloped, contains a small shed. The proposed second parcel with actual frontage just on Jackson Avenue contains the existing principal dwelling. It's just under 8,400 square feet. As I said, it's in the CMX 1 district for the Unified Development Code, which is the least intensive commercial district, and it's intended for small-scale commercial uses plus a variety of residential uses, including detached houses. The CMX 1 district under the UDC does not have a minimum lot size nor a minimum lot width. The intent of it is to promote small-scale commercial and range of residential uses. So, also point out it's in the old Ocean Springs Historic District, so any modifications to the existing dwelling or to new construction will require a certificate of appropriateness from the Historic Commission. With all those findings, staff is recommending approval of the lot split to create 2 lots as proposed. Rashad, you want to discuss the
Yeah, so-
C1 district possibilities?
Correct, so CMX1, for the commissioners that were not on here, CMX1 replaces C1, correct? C1?
Correct.
District, which had the CMX.
Located along Porter Avenue, was to promote a more urban and take advantage of the small-scale lots and parcels that are on there. C1, which was the zoning of that prior to the adoption of the UDC, was a more traditional commercial development, commercial zoning district. It did permit single-family dwellings because that was the character of that area. But for new development, it had a minimum lot width of 100 feet, which is pretty wide. That's more of a traditional commercial strip type of zoning district. There was no minimum size, but there was, like I said, the 100-foot minimum lot width. The parcel, as it sits right now, does meet that minimum requirement. It has 107 feet of width on Jackson Avenue and more than that on Porter. But under the proposed lot split we have in front of you, one of the lots would be 50 feet in width, the other would be just a little over 50 feet. So under the previous C1 district, they would be non-conforming lots. Where we want to go with that, you know, that's, as you said, we're going to look at each development on its unique character, but that is the situation we have right now with this one.
Okay, so just to summarize, it would be it's a compliant lot under both ordinances today. It would be a compliant lot under the UDC as presented, but it would not be a compliant lot if we have to revert back to, if we follow the
C1.
judge's order and convert back to C1 under the 1912 ordinance. Is that
Something like that.
Correct.
Okay, does anybody have any questions on that? Everybody kind of understand where we're sitting? I thought that was Taylor walking out. I was about to go grab her. So Taylor, welcome. Everybody say hi, Taylor. This is her first meeting. She kind of came at a great time. What would be, if we move forward as if the UDC was intact, going to stay intact, and then it was reverted, would that open the city up, and let me know if we need to go in closed session. Would that open up the city to litigation if we proceeded under the UDC item after the order, and then it is reverted?
Without getting into anything involving any kind of future litigation that would force us into a closed session, I think, I mean, obviously we talked about kind of the flux that we're in. I think it would be prudent to probably table it. You know, give us a couple weeks. We've got a motion that we're going to put in front of the judge. We hope will kind of sort it out for us. think that it would probably cause some problems if you ended up having to revert back, and then potentially if the order gets kicked, and then you have to go back again, you know, it could be a lot of flip-flopping. So I think it would be smarter to probably table it at this juncture.
Being that we're recommending body as opposed to approving body, is that something we can still recommend?
Approval?
Yeah, approval, I mean.
So you're saying recommend approval, but maybe delay taking it to the board, which is only 2 weeks at a time? Yeah.
The follow-up question goes along with this, just with C1, you could still have an exception, right?
Not to the width.
Well,
Width.
not to the extent being proposed here. There are, the zoning adjustment board could approve variances, but this would exceed, the lots that are proposed would exceed the amount of variance that they could do.
And the issue is creating what could end up being a non-compliant lot would potentially impact when they go to develop it. So we don't want to put anybody in that situation where we created something when if we waited just a little bit. But I guess to the question, could they recommend approval and just, wait until we may know something next week, we may know something the week after that, and just not take it to the board until we know.
I mean, that's y'all's call. I think if it were me, I'd probably just wait, honestly, just to make sure everything is a streamlined process and everyone's on the same page when it's presented to the board. Even if it's just tabling until the next meeting, so. But that's
Are you
also
Ray?
y'all's call.
Yes, I am.
You seem very interested in
Yes.
this conversation. So I just assumed,
Well,
come
may I
on,
talk, may I speak?
Yeah, please do.
Ray Belandy, 111 Clark Lane. My hearing is not great, but it's not good, so I'm not able, could you get closer to your microphone?
sorry.
Do y'all have the same?
Yeah, everybody needs to get
Thank
closer
you.
to their microphone.
Yeah, I'm bad. Where do you see these guys?
Yeah. Matthew, move
No,
your
I
microphone.
really missed out on the problem.
The problem
Yeah.
is,
Well, I
there
could-
was an order, I'm sure you follow the news, and you've seen the
Because
judge,
I
there's an
got that
order
here.
right now that calls to question the validity, I guess, of the Unified Development Code that we've been operating on for a year and a half, so, something like that,
At
2
least.
years.
2 years.
And so the problem is your application meets what the UDC says.
Right.
But now that UDC is, who knows? We don't know if it's gonna be valid or not.
Who's challenging it?
Well, it's all about the Front Beach development. WOX.com would be a great source.
They're really important.
It's actually, it was a judge order. It's nobody challenged. I mean, it's been challenged and the judge has issued an order that just came down
Wednesday.
Wednesday. So, I
Oh,
mean,
it was from a judge in Pascagoula.
Yeah,
Krebs.
Krebs.
Yeah. Okay.
So-
Robert Krebs.
if the UDC, as we have today, they could strike it completely and we have to revert back to our old code.
I understand. Okay.
If we do that, your 2 parcels are unusable because they're now non-compliant.
At least one of them would be.
So the question is, are you terribly upset if you get the can kicked down for a month to let us try to figure out?
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Let us, everybody point fingers at Taylor, let us figure out what code we're gonna have.
Well,
to
is
consider.
Krebs gonna make that decision? Is it in his power?
That's a question for.
Yeah, we have some post-judgment motion practice that we can do, and that's gonna be our goal, is to maybe at the very least get clarification
Mhm.
on this whole zoning issue.
Could this be a test case?
I would not subject yourself to that, being the test case. I don't think you wanna go there. Just
Why?
because it
Why
could
not?
be years and years and years before he makes any other kind of decision, which would be worse off for you instead of just waiting and
The
having
issue
to table
here,
it.
I'm sorry to interrupt, this
No,
just
no.
happened less than a week ago, so
Yeah.
everybody's
Yeah.
heads cut off. So
Okay.
I think even if we don't have a final answer by August, we'll at least know
Where to go with
where
it?
to go.
Right.
We'll have a better idea of what the impact
Okay.
could be.
Well, that's fair. Yes.
Well,
I do have a sale of a house contingent upon this. Of course, I may have to change it. Thank you.
all right, thank you. All right, anybody else got questions, comments, concerns?
I make a motion to table the request until next meeting.
Second. Okay, have a motion to table for Marshall. Nate Taylor under money tonight. Taylor, are you okay with that motion being, do we need to have a targeted tabling motion? Does it need to be tabled because, or just table is fine?
I mean, if you want to go on the record, you can table it because of a reason, but I think you're probably okay just to table it.
And just to the next
Just
meeting.
table
As is.
Table.
Motion Marshall, second by Allen.
Yeah, we don't need to get into pending litigation on it.
Don't use the L word. All right, motion Marshall, second by Allen, correct? Yep. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed. So Mr. Belangi, we will see you again here shortly, and feel free to reach out to Kevin or Wade in the meantime if you have any questions, what's going on, whatever. All right, thank you very much. All right, so item number 4B will be 1108 Calhoun Avenue, parcel ID 601-373-48-000. Edward Hogg is requesting the use of gravel or similar material to construct a driveway on a residential lot. I'm assuming this is a Wade special.
Okay, yes, it is. Just check to see if the applicant was here. This, as you said, this is a request for approval of a gravel driveway. This property is on the south side of Calhoun, just to the east of Dewey. Fairly, as you see from the site plan, a large piece of property. And they are simply requesting to be able to replace their existing broken up concrete driveway, which was damaged through some construction a few years ago, with gravel on the that portion of it as it's shown on that site plan. They've indicated that they will provide a hard surface, 10 foot of hard surface of asphalt, concrete, pavers to ensure containment as required by the ordinance. And would note that there are a number of existing gravel driveways within this immediate vicinity, including 1102, 1103, and several others along Calhoun Avenue. Public Works had no comment on the request, so with that, staff is recommending approval of this one, of gravel driveway at 1108 Calhoun.
Okay. You might have anything to Wade?
One question. Under the old rules, what were the rules about gravel?
Same. These were, in this situation, they were the same.
Okay.
That was taken from the old regulations, previous regulations strictly, and straight to the
We got no problem
UDC.
pressing on for this then.
Correct. This one can go forward, no problem.
Yeah, this one would be the same either way. All right, seeing now this is not a public hearing, we do tend to give the audience a chance if anybody wants to speak about the gravel driveway on Calhoun Street. In the audience, anybody passionate about Calhoun driveways? Ed, you want to speak about it? Come on up.
Hi, I'm Edward Hogue at 1108 Calhoun. One of the reasons we're looking at doing 610 limestone and gravel is there's a lot of live oak roots, and we felt we would go back with concrete that 10, 15 years from now we're going to have the same problem when the next time we do a little pull in there with something a little heavier than a car. So we thought it's best for the trees and best for long term to just go with the gravel or 610 limestone.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Hogue? Anybody else in the audience want to speak to it? Do I have a motion on this item?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of the use of the gravel for a driveway at 1108 Calhoun Avenue as described on the site plan submitted with the request.
Second.
Motion Allen, second Matthew, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, I'm gonna speak a little bit out of order and see, can I get maybe, does anybody think we ought to move item G up to hear it, since it's not a public hearing, and the others may take a little while. When we
So
get
moved.
in and out from life. All right, I got a motion, Matthew, to change the agenda. Do I have a second? Second, Kevin, all in favor?
All right.
All opposed? We are gonna jump down to item 4G, the last non-public hearing on the agenda. This is gonna be Rossetti Park East Phase 2, parcel ID 601-19116.000, Roger and Vicky Applewhite, requesting a final plat. Is that what it should say? Ms. Ken Donovan, requesting a final plat approval of a 3-lot subdivision. So that is item G. It's at the back of your packages. If y'all have pulled it, please do so now. Wade?
Yep, okay. Give me just a minute to grab that. Okay. Yeah, this is Phase 2 of the Rossetti Park East subdivision. And these are the lots actually located on the west side of the subdivision, facing Cox Avenue. You recall that the this was approved by y'all, let's see, a couple of years ago originally, and the final plat for 3 lots on the east side facing Church Street were given final plat approval in the May, back in May of last year. January, excuse me, I'll get to it in a minute, it doesn't really matter. This is in the CMX2 zoning district, and that was prior C2 under the previous regulations. So this one is going forward as you see it right now with the 3 lots that are created. In C2 district, there was no minimum lot width, so we're not running into the same situation we had with the lot split at 525 Jackson of creating non-conforming. These are conforming to both the CMX2 district and the previous C2 district. So Public Works has looked at this also. They have no comment on the plan. All the improvements are in the works. So with that, we can recommend approval of the final plat of this, and we go on to the Board of Aldermen for the creation of 3 lots, as you see them right there.
Okay.
And that's the report on this one.
So does anybody have any questions for Wade? Comments, thoughts? Items for public records? Anybody in the audience? Donovan, I know you don't miss an opportunity. You want to come on up?
I'm good. Y'all just say yes and I'm out of here.
Do you promise this is the last time we see the Rossetti Park subdivision?
No.
Does anybody else in the audience?
Gotta do it west somewhere, somebody have to east.
That's right. Does anybody in the audience want to speak to this application? Anybody, Rossetti Park, once, twice, sold? Do I have a motion on the final plat?
Make a motion to approve the final plat of Phase 2 on the Rossetti Park East subdivision.
Okay.
Second.
Motion Matthew, second Joe, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hang on, make good on your promise now. All right, let's jump back in order. We are going to get to the public hearing section of our agenda. So these are going to work. We're going to actually make a motion to go into public hearing. We will probably pass that motion. I think we're about 1,000 on it. Wade will give us a quick update. We may add some questions for Wade, and we'll open it up to the floor in a little more formal manner than the previous items. Up first will be item 4C, that is 808 Handy Avenue, parcel ID number 601-19422-000, Roy and Margaret Graves, requesting a residential short-term permit. And I said Wade, I meant Carolyn.
Oh, yeah, on these short-term rentals. And just as a reminder, the short-term rental ordinance is outside of the UDC, so it's not affected by the order, and we can proceed as normal.
Okay, before you get going, do I have a motion to go into a public hearing?
So moved.
Motion Matthew, second. I literally almost said Tino, but only because you're sitting here, you must be up. Second by Marshall, all in favor of going to a public hearing? Right hand.
Aye.
All opposed. All right, we are in a public hearing. Carolyn, please give us a little update.
All right, so what you have in front of you is residential short-term rental. The local property manager that was identified does live within the city limits, so it satisfies that requirement. Of the 77 property owners that were notified, no input was received prior to this meeting. And the inspection on June 10th was approved for maximum occupancy of 6. 3 vehicles were requested, that was reduced to 2. So with everything else being compliant, the request is recommended for approval, subject to annual renewal.
Okay. Do you have any questions, comments, concerns for Carolyn before we open the floor? All right, so audience, we are in a public hearing. This is for the Handy Avenue, 808 Handy Avenue residential short-term rental. First is the applicant in the audience. I'm standing in. Okay. Do you want to speak? You are certainly under no obligation to, but you're welcome to come up and speak if you do. If anybody bashes you, I'll give you a second chance. Does anybody in the audience want to speak in favor of, for, proponent for Item 4C, the Graves application for 808 Handy Avenue. Anybody in favor want to speak? Anybody opposed to the Graves application want to speak? Anybody just want to speak? Okay. Do I have a motion to close public hearing? So moved.
Second.
Motion Matthews, I'm sorry, motion Marshall, second Matthew, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed. Do I have a motion on the application, short-term rental on Handy?
I'll make a motion to approve the short-term rental of 808 Handy Avenue, subject to annual renewal.
Okay, I have a motion by Allen, a second.
So we need to add, because their documents all show 3 parking spots, it's only through 2.
It's-
I'll have to get those amended.
Yeah, they'll be amended before it goes to the
Okay.
board.
Do you go with your motion still?
I'm okay with it.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll give it a second.
All right. No
I
second.
interrupted him, so I'll give it a
Yeah,
second.
you gotta help him out now under that, Forrest. All right, so I have a motion by Allen, second by Kevin, all in favor of approval as presented?
Aye.
All opposed?
And that will be on the August 3rd.
So yeah, I don't know if you heard that, that skips a meeting, it'll be a public hearing on the Board of Aldermen on August 3rd.
It goes on consent on August 3rd.
Okay, crazy.
Yeah, well,
Should
it
on
used to
August
be.
3rd,
It used to be.
meeting for final action. So, if you want to be there, you can. All right, let's jump down. Item 4D, another public hearing. This is going to be 309 Shepherd Drive, parcel ID 615-951-17000. Aaron, help me out. Getch. Okay, actually was kind of going to be close to it. Thank you, Aaron. All right, doing business as AJG Ventures LLC, requesting a residential short-term rental permit. Thanks for sneaking a J and a G beside each other after that, too. Do I have a motion to go into public hearing?
So moved.
All right, motion Matthews, second Kevin. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We are in a public hearing. Again, this is the Shepherd Drive residential short-term rental.
All right, on this one, the property owner is also going to serve as a local property manager and does have an address within the city limits. I do want to clarify that because the application and the property is also listed in the business name, that we did confirm that he is the owner of the business, so therefore it is under his control. And that's just something we wanted to clarify to make sure that we could confirm that who the property owner was. So that has been confirmed. Beyond that, notified 81 property owners, and while we had one, as indicated in your packet, just concerned that lawn would be maintained, and that's part of it is all codes must be adhered to, so that would be code enforcement like any other property. The inspection was approved on June 10th, and the occupancy of 6 was approved, and the request for 2 vehicles was also approved. Therefore, with everything being compliant, we recommend approval subject to annual renewal.
Okay, anybody have any questions for Carolyn before we call the audience? Mr. Getch, did you want to speak? Under no obligation to, he has respectfully declined. Does anybody in the audience want to speak in favor of the Shepherd Drive short-term rental? Anybody opposed to Shepherd Drive short-term rental? Come on up, if you would, please state your name and address for the record.
First, thank you for letting me speak. I'm Renee Wiley, and I've lived in that neighborhood for almost 50 years.
What's your address, ma'am?
2715 English Drive.
Okay.
That neighborhood was established in the 60s and 70s as residential. Obviously, the value has gone up from when we first purchased it. A house down from me now went for $325,000, so the value has gone up. And I don't really appreciate a hotel being placed in my backyard, but that's really not my main concern. My main concern is for the children at Pecan Park. Because nowhere in your regulation does it call for any background checks of anybody who rents any of these short-term rentals. That's not a requirement. That's why I came to speak. if somebody rents a house for a year, whatever, pedophiles, whatever, they're supposed to go to the police department, we can find out about that. But I can't find out about that in a short-term rental. And that school is there, and those children are there, and they're on that playground, and they're in that national park, and they have no protection. And that's up to you to fix.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Knight. All right, anybody else in the audience? Come on up, name and address at the microphone, please.
Kimberly Ruscio, 394 Park Place. I just kind of had a general question. I see there's quite a few of short-term residential permits. So what is the goal of the city and how many do they plan on allowing in the future for the city?
So that's the Rob Blackman question, where are we at? So to answer your question quickly, we have a cap currently set at 50, correct?
Per year, per
No,
neighborhood?
50 total operating at any
citywide.
one time.
Okay.
Amanda is our resident keeper of permit numbers.
We currently have 44 issued.
44 active, correct?
Active.
Yeah.
So you say only 6 more people can apply, 50 is
Is
the
the
cap.
44, does that include, is it 3 tonight, right? 1, 2,
That does
3.
not include tonight's permits.
Okay, so we could be up to 47 by August 3rd, correct?
48 if 108 Shearwater were to be approved.
And-
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot whole business, yeah.
So by then, you're saying there are no more short-term rentals?
Under current,
Once we get to 50,
right,
the
under
city's
current
not doing
ordinance.
anymore?
Under current ordinance, yes,
Okay.
Unless-
Until they change the ordinance to add 50 more for the next time?
if they change the ordinance, yes.
Okay. And short-term rentals, is that a day, 2 days, a week, 2 weeks?
Anything less than 30 days.
Okay, so,
And that's a national standard, or maybe not,
It's-
that's not the right way to say it. but-
Right. It's a common practice as far as differentiating short-term from long-term. So turns it more into solid residential. It doesn't mean they have to rent for less than 30 days, but if they're going to at any given time, the permit's required.
okay. Okay, you know, as her, I enjoy my neighborhood, so I was just curious if this is gonna turn into Destin. Obviously, our beaches, or our water's not as pretty as theirs, but there's a reason why we like the neighborhood, so I was just more curious about how the short-term rentals.
Yeah, and anytime you want to call the planning department, we have an ordinance you can review, they can
Okay.
tell you a little bit more information on. I mean,
So if you have 50, you're good. Are they renewed every year, or they're just?
Yeah, they're renewed on an annual basis. Some people don't renew, and then that opens up a slot. So the requirement is 50 at any given time. So if somebody drops out, there'll be a spot. But they're inspected annually, and just to speak to those points, they are inspected annually. So they have to meet the physical requirements and inspections, which have enhanced life safety features, which we should probably all do to our house. But also, there is the requirement that the owner-operator keep a record of all renters that is available to the city within 10 days of request, so that if there is any issues, we can go back and find out who stayed there. That's under the law, under a lot of other laws. That was really the best we could do under this ordinance. But I would like to add that all ordinances and all code that applies to any other residential property, noise, code enforcement, also apply to the residential short-term unit. And violation of these codes is also a potential reason for revocation or
So if they have parties?
if they
there
have
all the
parties
time?
and noise ordinance, and we look every year at the complaints, we call the police department and code enforcement, and if there have been complaints, that could be, presented to the board, and they can make the determination to not
over
renew.
the year. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, all right,
So,
Thank you. All right, anybody else want to speak in favor of or against the Shepherd Drive application? Come on up. Make him say his name at the thing.
Sure, Aaron Getch, 1207 Bowen. Just wanted to introduce myself and thank the board for their time and consideration on my application for 309 Shepherd. And I also wanted to address the concerned residents and just introduce myself and let you know that the communication is open should there be any problems if this application is approved.
And that's a good point, Aaron, I appreciate that. So one thing Carolyn didn't say, in our ordinance, we do require that somebody live within, is it 2 miles
Yeah.
of the city limits on call? So I could live in California and have a short-term rental here, but I gotta have an agreement with a guy like, you get a call at 2 in the morning, you gotta jump on it, so. I always kind of prefer the owner to be the operator and the point of contact, so I'm glad to hear that that's you.
Sure, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Anybody in the audience? One last thing, come on, Ray.
Hey! Okay, the lady concerned about the numbers?
Yes.
I don't think there, and this is, it's not your, it's a little out of your purview, but this would be the planning department, and Wade, correct me if I'm wrong. But if your property is on commercial, you don't have to have a short-term rental permit, correct?
There is a commercial short-term rental, it just doesn't have to have public hearing.
Okay.
But it's all the same requirements apply, so
But
even if it's zone commercial.
It's not counted in the 50.
It's not counted in the 50, but,
Bam, okay.
but that's on a commercially zoned property that could be eligible for other businesses.
What I'm pointing out, you're saying 50 and there could be 150.
Well,
Theoretically.
Well, no, I wouldn't make that statement. We're talking about residential short-term rentals. If it's a
Oh.
commercial piece of property, then it could be used for a variety of commercial uses. So
Understand,
that's
but-
outside of
But
this.
there are short-term rentals.
That are on commercially
Okay,
zoned
all right,
property.
I'm making an ass out of myself, but thank you.
That's mostly downtown and on commercially
But
zoned.
there's also hotels on commercial.
Right, it would be considered more of a hotel.
And there's inns. and-
But even those, we inspect annually and renew them under the same guidelines.
Right. Okay, anybody else have anything? Do I have a motion to close public hearing?
So moved.
Matthew, second Joe, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, we are out of the public hearing on the Shepherd Drive application. Do I have a motion regarding this
I want
application?
to make a comment.
Go ahead.
I make this periodically, just for everyone's education, I guess, but if I want to rent a house in the neighborhood and don't want a short-term rental, you have absolutely no control over me renting that house. And no control over, nobody inspects it, nobody, reacts to complaints or anything else. I've lived next to short-term rentals and rentals, and believe me, I'd much rather have a short-term rental next door than a rental, because if you got a problem rental property, you got a real problem. So the reason the city put this ordinance in effect was we knew we had a lot of people coming in and people were renting and doing short-term rentals, but there was no control over it. So we said if we're gonna have people that wanna visit the city and wanna stay in a neighborhood, let's make sure that we have a way of controlling what happens in those homes. We inspect them, and if there are problems, we can pull the permit and it's done. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments? Anybody want to take a stab at a motion?
I make a motion that the residential short-term rentals permit for 309 Shepherd Drive be approved, subject to annual renewal.
Okay. Second. Motion Marshall, second Allen. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed. So that will be heard on the August 3rd board
It's
meeting.
gonna be on consent on August 3rd. Okay.
All right, next item.
The third short-term rental on this agenda is for 1814 South Railroad Street. It is a residential short-term rental.
You taking my job?
Huh?
I'm going to introduce you.
Oh, come on.
So-
I'm just ready to keep going.
I'm excited about this.
I know, I'm just ready to
right.
keep going. Talk faster.
I can talk fast. Item 4E, public hearing, 1814 South Railroad Street, parcel ID 601-193-14000. Justin Salazar is requesting a residential short-term rental permit. Do I have a motion to go into public hearing?
So moved.
I had Marshall say it first. I got a second by Matthew. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We are in a public hearing. Carolyn, did you want to talk about this?
Yeah, I did. It's been a day. Okay, we were talking about local property manager. The owner is going to be the local property manager, but the requirement is within 2 miles of the city limits, basically as the crow flies in a straight line. So while he does have an address on Porta Bay in Biloxi that is directly across the bay, and it is within a half mile actually of the city limit. I had to look at that to be sure, but yeah, so it is within the 2 miles of the city limit per the ordinance, and it does comply with that. We did send out the notice to 37 property owners, and as of this public hearing, we did not receive any written or phone call input on that. The inspection was completed on June 14th. The requested occupancy of 8 was approved, but the request for 4 vehicles was reduced to 3 by the building official. So there had been no code violations or police reports filed within the last 12 months. With that, the application is compliant per the code, and the recommendation is for approval subject to annual renewal.
Okay. Any questions for Caleb? Anybody? All right, is the applicant here today?
Sir.
All right, did you want to speak?
Please.
Okay. Name and address before you get started.
Yes, sir. Justin Salazar, 1814 South Railroad Street. So I just wanted to make note of our background, what our goal here is. My wife and I do real estate. We work for Expect Realty. So we appreciate and recognize the value of what these property values are to be. We actually had sold that house in Old English Drive for that premium. So as far as neighborhood approval, we definitely claim to be an asset to the community. We did put in about $15,000 in renovations, upgrades. I am a casino marketing executive formerly. So as far as hospitality and tourism for South Mississippi, I understand the importance of what that value is. We share a backyard with the Crawfish House. And so we're very excited about this. And we're very hands-on, we're very passionate about what we do. And this, as much as rental revenue will be, this is something that we're looking to be an asset to the community. So just want to thank you.
Sure, thank you. Does anybody want to ask him anything before he says? No? Okay, thank you. Does anybody in the audience want to speak in favor of the South Railroad Street short-term rental? In favor of? Anybody want to speak in opposition to? Name and address at the microphone, sir.
Not a problem.
You know the drill.
Yeah, been there before. Not my first rodeo. James E. Lewis Jr. I live at 805 Canebrake Drive, Ocean Springs. I am a member and I'm on the Deacon Board of Macedonia Missionary Baptist Church, which is right down the street from this property. I have sat here and I have listened, and I got a little bit upset when I saw it was on the last item just about because you moved something up. But the most important thing is that was a benefit for me because I saw a lot of stuff that came out prior to, and I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. His address as the owner is 1814, but correct me if I'm wrong, he lives across the Bay, Carolina? Is that what you said?
That's what was indicated on his application, yes. Just directly across in Biloxi.
He lives in Biloxi. He owns the property in Ocean Springs.
Correct.
But he lives in Biloxi. I want to make sure that was established. Key thing is that short-term rentals are okay to me in commercial areas, not residential. Simple fact is this. The young lady's already alluded that this is not just in Florida where the water's pretty and all that, fine, well and good. But when you have people that's coming in and out, and this is a residential, this is not commercial area, this is a residential. When you invest in property that you're going to buy a rental property that you're going to use, that's fine, well and good. But for short-term rentals, I'm sorry, I don't buy it. I just don't buy it because you're going to have people that's going to be coming in. There is no investment for them to be here in Ocean Springs except the little Las Vegas Strip, which is right across the bridge. And let's be honest, bottom line up front. I think that this should not be approved. I have an object to it. And the reason is quite simple, it's a residential area. It is not commercial. If you want to go to the hotel, they got hotels all up down the strip. Go to the hotel. But don't bring it down there. They're going to be partying. They're going to come in. They're going to party. When you have the police to come in, they're going to do a report. And the main thing they're going to say, well, you know what? This is short-term rental. That's not within our preview. Hold the noise down, and we move on. But the residents still got to stay. They got to listen to that. Thanks for very kind.
All right, thank you, Mr. Lewis. Was there anybody else in the audience who wanted to speak in opposition to? Name and address. Name and address at the podium, please.
How y'all doing this afternoon? My name is Greg Gibson, and I actually own property at 1004 MLK, and actually I grew up across the street from Macedonia Missionary Baptist Church. First of all, let me just say that our church have endured and had to push back. We went through twice with the liquor license where business owners have tried to come down there and encroach our property. I grew up down there. I got 2 aunts, both of them are 85 years old, and both of them are widows now. And of course I have my nickname, as they call me Check, and told me, you know what, I have to come down here and fight their battles. They cannot, when I say cannot, pick up the phone and call the police at 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning. You know, they locked down at 6 o'clock, their house is locked down. And I do want to say we have safety, security issues that we need to worry about, noise that we need to worry about, trash and overflow, collection that may be overflow, homeowners liability. All that's going to impact our neighborhood. Now, I do want to say, prior to that, Ocean Springs, all down this whole area, when Reverend Trotter was the alderman of our ward, and he would always say, he remembered telling Kevin Alves, who was the mayor at that time, you can do whatever you want to do, but you need to leave this area alone. You need to leave it alone. Because I'm like what Deacon Lewis said, they got hotels up and down here that they can go and rent for a short period of time. But that's our safe haven in our neighborhood. And we've been fighting for the last 5 to 6 years to keep people from encroaching on our area. And I can tell you this, Martin Luther King is the only road coming off Highway 90 is still residential. And we had to fight for that, to continue to make sure that that is residential. And I do want to read quickly to you guys that John Gill put in when he talked about the short-term rental. He says short-term rentals do not fit inside the residential neighborhoods in Ocean Springs. Neighborhoods are most protected property in the city, in particular older neighborhoods where we have generations residing there. These short-term places do not fit. And when I say do not fit, do not fit. Do not fit. We don't have a homeowners association in that area, period. If you go to the newer neighborhoods, yes, they do. I reside at 6516 Shoshone Drive, but I have a home right there at 1004 MLK. You know, we're tired. We got seniors in that area. We got people who are on fixed incomes, you know, just can't do it. You know, I don't care where they go and purchase a home. If you're gonna purchase a home, then you need to invest in that neighborhood, not just come there for 2 days, 1 day, and then I'm in and out. That's all I'm saying. So I would like that if you would consider not approving that application at this point in time.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Anybody else in the audience want to speak in opposition to? Name and address at the microphone, please.
Spears, 1900 South Railroad Street.
And you said, what was the name?
Spears.
Okay.
1900 South Railroad Street. My thing is, it's a dead-end street, so a lot of people still turn down that street to go to the end and come back out. That's more traffic than we need anyway. I live right next door, I guess, to these guys right here. I guess right here. Well, yeah, mine is a lot, but they can't turn around. I know he drives a white truck, I think, and he bags up and almost runs in a ditch right there. I mean, you can't put no more than 2 cars in there, and you put 3 or 4, they coming down my road trying to turn around and going back the other way. I mean, I've had several people hit my fence and just drive off, you know, because they lost their way. On the front of the entrance, it says no outlet. It should be like a dead end sign, because people don't need to be coming down this way, turn around, coming back. I mean, I have no quarrels with these guys over here, but the fact that, like I said, people just come down the street and turn around and go back the other way all the time. I'll say tags regardless, whoever. I just want to keep the traffic down, coming back there and doing that. So, all right, that's all I'd say.
Anybody else want to speak in opposition to? opposition to. Anybody else want to speak? I saw the applicant raised his hand. We do typically let them speak at the end. Did you want to say anything else, Justin?
Yes, sir. So,
Please do it at the microphone. We can
absolutely
help her with her minutes later.
So, you know, I 100% respect the need for security and stability and privacy, obviously. One thing I'd like to say, so my wife and I, we have 3 small kids, 6, 3, and 1. We do own a home in Porter Bay. You know, this is part of what would be a part-time home for us. So one of the running jokes we've had, you know, friends and family say, where are you guys at? We say, oh, we're at home. And they said, well, you're here. You know, your car's not here. And we said, no, we're at the railroad house. We're home. So I understand there's a notion or a misconception of what short-term rentals are, and it's connotative to partying and mischief. You know, we take pride in our home. Our goal for our children, you know, we have two adult bicycles, both of which have a cart carrier for our 2 youngest, and a tandem, my daughter. You know, so the goal that we're trying to cultivate is the family atmosphere that, you know, ride your bike, go eat. So, you know, go eat at one of the restaurants, go invest in one of the shops. So, with respect to the concerns, one of which is we actually utilize the property. The other of which is we are very much family oriented. So I just wanted to say that.
Yes.
Yes, and we do actually, so there is, for our parking sake, we do plan to make some renovations down the road, one of which was to remove our entire fence line and just fence off and open 4, because we had requested 4 parking spots and we only got for 3. So we do intend to redirect our fence line and remove that to where there is an easy, open, accessible parking. Currently it's sufficient, it does work, you know, but we do look to make improvements to the property.
Okay. And if it was approved, you do recognize it would be only approved at 3 stalls today?
Yes,
And then
yes.
I guess probably annual renewal will be the time, try to add back another one. If they do make changes, the fire department goes back out and says yes or no.
Right, I mean, any changes would have to actually, we haven't had that situation pop up, so I'd have to look and see what the path would be,
Okay.
so.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have a motion to go out of public hearing? So moved.
To have 2 public hearings, the code didn't require that, we've, you know, been able to clarify, so it is on consent, but if you did have concerns on either side, you could just let your alderman know and he'll pull it for discussion. So it's on consent unless somebody requests it to be pulled, but that's just a phone call. I also did want to add that as the situations like with the dead-end street that's not appropriately marked, I'll pass that on to Public Works, because we have done that with other streets. We'll recommend some additional signage to make it clear and try to reduce that problem. So not related to the short-term rental, but I will pass it along to Public Works and ask them I'll recommend some improvements for them.
So that's you're clear that what she said about the consent agenda, to make sure that this gets direct attention if you're concerned, get a hold of your alderman and make sure that it's become an agenda.
Pull it for discussion.
We thoroughly understand about the consent agenda. Since you have directed the conversation on this side of the room, one of the most important things is I understand if you look at documentation, whether or not it goes back in and meets. But also on the same token is that you still have a moral obligation to look at the whole picture and not just a portion of it. And I trust in God that you I that sit there will go back in and think before you act. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, anybody else? Questions, comments, concerns? Anybody want to take a stab at a motion? If not,
Yeah, I make a motion that the request for a short-term rental permit for 1814 South Railroad Avenue be approved, subject to reduced parking permit and annual renewal.
all right, there's a motion on the floor. Does anybody want to second that motion? I'll second. That was Alan? Yep. Motion Marshall, second Alan for approval as presented, making sure the three stalls is good and subject to annual renewal. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
And again, that'll be on
August 3rd.
consent on August 3rd.
Correct. Okay.
Moving on August 3rd.
All right, so we are now down to the last public hearing du jour. This is going to be a public hearing on 4013 Beanville Boulevard. Parcel ID is 601-261-601-100 and 601-261-601-150. Hudson Sandiford. Did I get it right here? Sandiford?
Sandiford.
Is requesting to rezone from M1 warehousing and service to CH regional commercial. So as a quick matter of housekeeping, maybe. CH is obviously a UDC designation. M1 is obviously a UDC designation. So we do need to keep in the back of our minds that there is a chance that this would revert back. It is my understanding, what I have looked at and what I believe Wade will tell us in a minute, that the rezoning is about use. Is that an accurate statement to say publicly and on the record? Rezoning is about a use. Obviously, there's character of the neighborhood, things of that nature, but ultimately what you're doing is changing what is allowed to go on that property. As I understand it, both the UDC and the old ordinance have, verbatim use.
We didn't change
right?
the use.
Very, very similar. I would not, I don't think it goes as far as say verbatim. I think they are exactly the same, but
But we're not
yes.
having
Yes.
wild, well, Kevin, what was your favorite one, the postage stamp? Help me out here. The
Stamp Redemption Center.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's probably not a need.
That's probably not going to be requested, but I'll say all typical requests for a CH or C3 property are consistent in both. And as are the majority of the development, there are some changes that happen, but that would be reviewed when they come back for development. However, I can say that under both codes, the property would still be developable in CH or C3.
Okay, so there are definitely, well, I shouldn't even say that, but likely differences in what the design will look like, but as far as a use standpoint for rezoning, it is remarkably, if not completely similar. So under that understanding, I'm pausing because I forgot Taylor's name. Would you be comfortable with us rendering a recommendation to the board as we sit in flux right now, since they are so closely paralleled?
Yeah, based on my understanding, the use would be almost identical under either one.
Right.
So I think, either way you go, I think you would probably be covered and it would be fine. So, that's y'all's call.
Is there any questions on the commissioner's side before I open the public hearing?
Once we go into public hearing.
Marshall has made the motion as we go into public hearing. Kevin seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are now officially in a public hearing. Is this a waiting special?
It is, okay. These are actually two parcels, one right behind the other, with frontage on Beanville Boulevard. As you can see on the current zoning map down at the bottom of the page, this is basically the only M1 zoning of these two parcels in this immediate vicinity. Everything around it, both to the north, east, west, south, along Beanville Boulevard is in the CH district, which is the zoning district they're requesting. I think if you can take a look at the photo adjacent to that, it appears to be a former warehouse building, which may relate to the intent of the M1 zoning district at that time. Dates from a time when the character of Beanville Boulevard was quite different from what it is today. Right now, as you can see from it's mentioned in the report that the CH district, that's the most intense commercial mixed-use district. It's intended for retail, office, in areas with high traffic generation rates. Totally similar to what the character of Beanville Boulevard in this vicinity is, with the Walmart to the northwest and also existing fast food restaurants in the immediate area. So I think that kind of gives some evidence of how the character of Beanville Boulevard has changed to the point where a warehouse in one industrial zoning was really out of character with the the character and nature of Bienville Boulevard at the time. So with that, staff can recommend approval to the CH district. As you mentioned that the previous zoning designation for CH was C3. The uses are almost identical. The intent of both the C3 and the CH districts are the same for highway commercial zoning, highway commercial uses. There are differences in parking and building setback, building configuration. That may come into play with the actual construction and development of the property, which would have to take place under our design review regulations. That would be at a later time once the zoning actually takes place. Either way, the process is the same. There may be difference in standards of how the building can be sited and located on the property. But that doesn't affect the zoning change, so we are still recommending approval to CH zoning.
Yeah, and just to build slightly on what Wade, I always like to say, like, I almost hate when we see the name of what's coming, because then we get focused on that. This is a rezoning. This would carry with the property. It doesn't matter if Hudson hacks up and goes away and Tom, Joe, and Harry pick up the property tomorrow, it'll still be CH. That is what we're looking at. We are not looking at what's coming, what's building, what's whatever. So well stated, Wade. Anybody have any questions for Wade? Anybody in the audience? I'm sorry, is the applicant here? Did y'all want to speak?
Unless someone has a problem with it, no.
I think she wants to
My
speak.
husband is the applicant who is out of town on business, and I'm his wife, here for him.
I'm the lawyer.
And this is my attorney. My friend and my attorney.
Well, does anybody want to speak in favor of this application? I'll literally call her name and raise your hand.
No.
Anybody want to speak in opposition to this application? Does anybody want to speak to this application in any way, shape, form, or fashion? Okay, do I have a motion to close?
So moved.
No. I don't even know who seconded it now.
Me.
Matthew motion, Marshall second. All in favor of closing the public hearing?
Aye.
All right, does anybody want to take a motion, staff, for the rezoning, keeping in mind that our two main triggers for rezoning are mistaken original zoning and/or changing character of the neighborhood?
I make a recommendation approval for the rezoning of 4013 Bienville from M1 Manufacturing and Warehousing District to CH Regional Commercial District.
Second. I heard Kevin first, so we'll go motion Matthew, second Kevin. All in favor? Any discussion on that? I'm sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? All right, so that will be on.
It should be on next week's, as long as we have to draft an ordinance. So it should be on Tuesdays. I'll get with Taylor on
Requires a
that.
public hearing though, so
Oh, yeah.
what we'll have to do on that.
Oh, yeah, we have to advertise.
I'm
the
sorry.
public hearing.
There are too many variations of rules. We'll advertise the public hearing, so it'll be on, the second public hearing will be on the August 3rd agenda.
August 3rd board meeting.
And Amanda will
Same
let you
place.
know all the
Okay.
details. Yeah.
That'll be final ruling. Well, unless they table it. All right, we have already considered item 4G earlier, so we are officially on the new bound on our business. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak towards anything not related to what we talked about today?
You want to say hi to Mom?
All right, what about commissioners? Y'all got anything you want to add before we head out?
Do we have to elect officers again or not?
That'll be, everything got delayed a month this time because of the elections and the changes in aldermen. So they basically extended everything a month. So the new commissioners will start at the August meeting and you'll vote in the September. So give them one meeting in.
That was part of my commissioner forum, is can we get Mike Davis in the back to wave everybody, say hi to our newest commissioner? Is it too late?
No, yes, it's too late.
I'm
Like,
also,
you cannot run
probably
away.
gonna call him Tino a time or two, but we'll get past that line
Right.
together. Anybody else have anything to say?
Good job.
Good job. Looking forward to learning how to move forward without having to ask the attorney so many questions. Good job, Taylor, thank you for your help.
Move to adjourn.
I got a motion to adjourn, I got a second by, I'm gonna give it to Alan, I think I heard Alan speak, may have been you, but nobody cares, so it's adjourned. Anybody want to object? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? There's gonna be a no from that.
See you next time.